Welcome to Space Rocks, Asteroids, Comets, Meteoroids, Meteors, and Meteorites. We are going to be looking at different types of space rocks. We're going to look at asteroids, comets, meteoroids, meteorites, meteors. Those are actually the same thing, except they're just in different locations. We're going to be talking about those three main space rocks. So in this video, I'm going to share a lot of information about them, but I'm also sharing with you lots of resources, lots of places where you can look and find information about these types of space rocks. So part of this is you actually doing some of the exploration too, to learn about these space rocks. So I guarantee you're going to find lots more information than what I share with you in this video. So please make sure that you're going and looking at that stuff too, because this is one of many resources for you to use. Our first group of space rocks are asteroids. We've already talked about how there are millions of asteroids in the asteroid belt. But what is an asteroid? Asteroids are rock and iron objects that orbit the Sun. Millions of them are found in the wide region between Mars and Jupiter, known as the asteroid belt. Some asteroids are as small as a city block. Others could fill up an ocean. Some asteroids even have their own moons. Sometimes asteroids are called minor planets. Asteroids are not big enough to be planets. That's why they're asteroids. Most of this ancient space rubble can be found orbiting the Sun between Mars and Jupiter within the main asteroid belt. Asteroids range in size from Vesta, the largest, at about 329 miles in diameter, to bodies that are less than 33 feet across. The total mass of all asteroids combined is less than that of the Earth's moon. All right, so for the different space rocks, I want to show you a couple books that I have. So I have a universe book. It's a DK eyewitness book, and it says, "Discover the incredible secrets of the universe from its farthest galaxies to our own solar system." This is a lot of information. This book has lots of facts and lots of great things in it. That's why one of the resources I'm sharing with you is a DK site. I think DK books and DK websites are awesome. I always have students that like to read pages about them because there's just so much information about everything. So I love that. I mean, look at just the page about asteroids, meteors, and meteorites. Just lots and lots of information. So obviously this is not a book I can read the whole thing to you. But if it's something that interests you, you can always go and look at some of this too. So I thought I would look and show with you a couple things. It says, I like this one here though. It says the Celestial Police. The Celestial Police. In 1800, Hungarian Baron Franz von Zach organized a search party of German astronomers to look for a planet in the apparent gap in the solar system between Mars and Jupiter. They became known as the Celestial Police. But they were upstaged by Italian astronomer Giuseppe Piazzi, who spotted a new planet in the gap on January 1st, 1801. Named Sirius, it proved to be the first of the mini planets or asteroids. So this is actually a picture of Giuseppe Piazzi, who lived 1746 to 1826. I think that's so fascinating that they were able to spot things like that. So we do have different types of asteroids, and so we have lots of varieties. I'm going to read some of this to you. It says asteroid variety, so different types of asteroids. Even the largest asteroid series is only about 580 miles across, only, which makes it less than 1/3 the size of the moon. The next largest, Pallas and Vesta, are only about half the size of Ceres. But most asteroids are very much smaller. Ida, for example, is about 35 miles long. Gaspra, only about 11 miles. These were the first asteroids photographed by the Galileo spacecraft on its way to Jupiter. Gaspra is made up of silicate rocks. Like many asteroids, Ida's structure is more of a mystery. Other asteroids are mainly metal or a mixture of rock and metal. So this is asteroid Ida. Here's Gaspra, Eros. This one is not an asteroid, but I can see these are the asteroids. So they're the large rocks. We'll look back at this for comets and meteors, meteorites, meteoroids. I have another book too that I wanted to show you. It's a space book. Some of you have seen this book as well when we've been on calls. But it's just another nonfiction book about space. Lots of just awesome photographs, images with, great descriptions. So I thought we could look here and see what we can find out about our space rocks. So this page doesn't have too much about asteroids, but it does have some information here. So it's got series here. So it says most asteroids are small potato-shaped rocks tumbling through space, but the biggest series is so large its gravity has shaped it into a round dwarf planet. So it actually has a different classification as well. And then it's got the rocks in the solar system. So, beyond our solar system is something that we call the Kuiper belt. That's beyond Pluto, and it holds thousands of icy objects. And some of those are comets. But we have most of our asteroids are between Mars and Jupiter. So it's just got lots of those rocks. All right, so we're gonna revisit these books too when we go ahead and look at the other space rocks. So I hope you enjoyed learning a little extra about asteroids. So asteroids are rocky bodies that orbit the sun in nearly circular orbits, but are too small to be classified as planets. Our next space rocks are comets. A comet is a chunk of frozen gases, rock, ice, and dust. Comets have long orbits around the sun. As comets pass close to the sun, part of their frozen surface begins to break away and turn into gases and dust. These particles reflect the sun's light and become visible as long tails. A comet's tail always points away from the sun. So if the comet's tail points away from the sun, you can find where the sun would be and where the tail would be in the drawing right there. Where is the sun? Comets are cosmic snowballs of frozen gases, rock, and dust that orbit the sun. When frozen, they are the size of a small town. When a comet's orbit brings it close to the sun, it heats up and spews dust and gases into a giant glowing head, larger than most planets. The dust and gases form a tail that stretches away from the sun for millions of miles. There are billions of comets orbiting our sun in the Kuiper belt, and even more distant, Oort cloud. This image of a comet was taken by the Hubble Space Telescope. Hubble is the first major optical telescope to be placed in space. Above the distortion of the atmosphere, so it's far away from our rain and clouds and light pollution, it can see a beautiful view of the universe. Scientists have used Hubble to observe the most distant stars and galaxies, as well as the planets in our solar system. So many of these images that we're seeing, like the ones of these comets, were taken by the Hubble Space Telescope. We even have a famous comet. Halley's Comet is the most famous comet because it's a comet that is predictable. It returns to Earth's vicinity about every 75 years, and it makes it possible for a human to see it twice in his or her lifetime. The last time it was here was in 1986, and so it's projected to return in 2061. How old will you be when Halley's Comet comes back? Me again. We're going to look at our two books. So this is our space book that we're going to start with when we look at comets. So we're looking at the same page as before, but it's got different, it's got all the space rocks on here. So we're gonna look and see what it says about comets. And I like what it says here. It says blazing a trail. And it says a comet is an icy object that gravity or a collision pushes close to the sun. At its heart is a chunk of ice the size of a mountain. This icy mountain erupts with activity, giving off a cloud of dust and gas. Sunlight and solar particles blow this away in flowing tails that always point away from the sun. Okay, we knew that. So it's telling us the different parts of a comet. So you've got a dust tail. So it says solar radiation forces dust particles from the nucleus in a curving dust tail. This shines yellow from reflected sunlight. So we got that reflection of that sunlight in the tail. And then it says the coma. It says streaming gas and dust shoot from the coma, often millions of miles across. So we've got just different parts of a comet, and comets. It says here jets. Plumes of water, vapor, and dust erupt from surface cracks. So we've got lots of different parts here. And it says a gas tail. It's blown away by the solar wind gas tail. Gas blown away by the solar wind forms a straight bluish gas tail, the ion tail. Its color comes from the glow of carbon monoxide gas. And then there's a little image here. So it says, a sign in the sky. In times past, people feared comets as omens of disasters. So they thought they were like, things that were saying bad things were happening, a warning. When Halley's Comet appeared in 1066, people saw it as a sign of King Harold of England's defeat by William the Conqueror. So they thought the comet had something to do with their leader getting beat, by another leader, someone else to become their leader. All right, so we also have, we've got something called Deep Impact. It says, in July 2005, the spacecraft Deep Impact reached a comet. It's the comet Tempel 1. It shot a probe the size of a washing machine called an impactor at the nucleus. I can't say that. That's like at the center right here. The nucleus. The impact blew out a crater in a plume of water and dust molecules that had been deep inside the comet for billions of years. Deep Impact then studied the matter thrown out by the blast. So Deep Impact releases the impactor at the comet's nucleus, and then it says it hits at 23,000 miles per hour. So just interesting little added things about comets, and just to see some images. Wow. Let's go ahead and look at our other book too. We're going to check out the DK Eyewitness book again, and we're going to look at comets. So this one says Icy Wanderers. In the outer reaches of the solar system, there are great clouds of icy debris, relics of the time the solar system was born. From time to time, some of these chunks get disturbed and travel in toward the sun. Averaging only about 6 miles, 10 kilometers across, they remain invisible until they are heated up by the sun and throw off shiny clouds of gas and dust. Then they can become the most spectacular of all heavenly bodies, comets. At their brightest, comets can rival the brightest planets and can develop tails that stretch for millions of miles, okay? So the tail that we can see the color can be millions of miles. Not always, but it can be. That's really far. Comets seem to appear suddenly out of nowhere. In the past, people believed they were signs of misfortune and brought famine, that means hunger, disease, death, and destruction. So that's kind of like what the other book said. But I like the images here. So, when you see what a comet looks like versus an asteroid, they're very different. The asteroid's like this big rock, right? And the comet is like it's an icy, fiery ball. Like it just, okay, so we got that ice. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and we'll revisit these when we look at our last type of space rocks. So let's review what comets are. Comets are a mixture of ices like water, methane, carbon dioxide, ammonia, and dust. and have highly elliptical orbits. So that means their orbits are very oval shaped, whereas the asteroids were very circular. So they have different orbits, and I can see they're made of different things. What are asteroids made of again? Oh yeah, asteroids are large rock and iron objects. So remember, they're huge space rocks. And comets are the mixture of ices and dust. They have different descriptions, and they certainly look different too. Let's go ahead and look at these space rocks. We have meteors, meteoroids, and meteorites. Meteoroids, meteors, and meteorites. Each day, tons of meteoroids hit Earth's atmosphere. Meteoroids are pieces of rock that break off of asteroids and travel through space. Most meteoroids burn up in Earth's atmosphere, causing a streak of light called a meteor. Meteoroids that reach Earth's surface are called meteorites. So when you think about it, the meteoroids are the rocks that are in space that are traveling. They break off of asteroids. The meteoroids that burn up in Earth's atmosphere, we call those shooting stars, like this one. But we're going to call them meteors. Those are those streaks of light. Finally, our meteorites are meteoroids that reach Earth's surface. They are right here on Earth. Meteorite is right here. That picture is a meteorite in a museum. Meteorites have been discovered all over the world, like these discovered in Antarctica, or these meteorites that were discovered in Sudan, which is in Africa. The Barringer meteor crater in Arizona was formed by a meteorite that struck Earth about 50,000 years ago. Impacts can happen anywhere on Earth. All right, we're going to look at our last type of space rocks, and I'm going to use these books. So we've got the Universe book by DK Eyewitness. And even though we've looked at it for asteroids and the comets, I didn't read this introduction. And the introduction really has to do with meteors, meteorites, and meteoroids. So just remember, there's also asteroids on this page. Don't get confused. But I love what this says here. It says the solar system has many members besides planets and their moons. The largest are the rocky lumps we call asteroids or minor planets, orbiting relatively close to the sun. Swarms of smaller icy bodies lurk much farther away at the edge of the solar system. Some occasionally travel in toward the sun, where they melt, release clouds of gas and dust, and become visible as comets. Asteroids often collide and chip pieces off one another, and comets leave swaths of dust in their wake. So they leave some of themselves behind, is what it's saying. Okay, some of those parts. Asteroid and comet particles called meteoroids fill interplanetary space. So when they cross Earth's orbit and enter its atmosphere, most burn up in the atmosphere as shooting stars, also termed meteors. A rare meteor that reaches the ground is called a meteorite. So when we say meteoroid, did you hear what it said? It said that a meteoroid is pieces of asteroid and comet particles, so like hunks of them. So meteoroids are what are up in space. When we have a meteor, it's like this. A meteor shower, right? Like this. It says showers of meteors. The fiery streaks we see in the sky are meteors, are mostly by meteoroid particles little bigger than sand grains. These particles are heated to incandescence by friction as they smash into the atmosphere at speeds of up to 60,000 miles per hour. On average, about 10 meteors can be seen in the night sky every hour. But during meteor showers and storms, thousands may be seen. So I'll be honest with you, I did not see a meteor or know it was a meteor until I was in my 20s, until I was an adult. And that was when I was actually out in Wyoming taking a class with other teachers. So when I think about Wyoming and where I was, it's not like where we live here in Ohio. In Ohio has lots of areas that are farmland, and I live close to a city, Columbus. So there's lots of houses, there's lots of lights. lots of buildings. So it's hard to see some of the things in the night sky. But when I was out in Wyoming, and there was not a big city around, there were not a lot of houses, there were not neighborhoods where I was able to get a really great view of the sky. So I could see some of those shooting stars. So the things that you see in the sky that are shooting stars are meteors. The ones that are out in space before they get that shooting starness are the meteoroids. And then whatever lands on Earth is a meteorite. A meteorite is like a little piece of rock. So when we look at a couple of our read alouds, you're gonna see what those are. So we're gonna see some of those examples. So we're gonna learn more about those space rocks here in a few. All right, we're gonna go ahead and look at this space book to see what we can find out about the whole meteor, meteoroid, meteorite situation. And when I looked in the index in the back, it actually had me go to the same page. So when I looked at all the images and everything, there's not a lot there about meteoroids or meteors or meteorites. But when I read right up here, it just had a little bit. It just said, meteoroids are even smaller bits of rock debris floating through space. That's the only thing it says in here about them. But it's following that asteroids are mostly rock and metal, and hundreds of thousands of them orbit between Mars and Jupiter in the asteroid belt. Meteoroids are even smaller bits of rock debris floating through space. So when you think of an asteroid and a meteoroid is way bigger than a meteoroid. A meteoroid is much smaller. It can actually be a piece of asteroid that's broken off. So a meteoroid is smaller than an asteroid.
A meteor appears when a particle or chunk of metallic or stony matter called a meteoroid enters Earth's atmosphere from outer space. Meteors that pass through the atmosphere and impact Earth's surface are called meteorites. So the biggest difference for all of these is where they're located. Meteoroids are located in space, meteors are in Earth's atmosphere, and a meteorite is right here on Earth. Let's review our space rocks. We have comets that are mixtures of ice and dust, and they have an elliptical orbit around the sun. We have asteroids that mostly are found in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Meteoroids that are smaller than asteroids, and they are a piece of stone and metal that travel in space. A meteoroid that falls towards the Earth, heating up due to friction and glowing across the sky, is a meteor. And it says a bolide is a large, bright meteor that often explodes. Last but not least, a meteorite is just a meteor that hits the Earth's surface. Now it's your turn to go explore some of the resources I provided for you so you can learn more about our space rocks. What will you discover about comets, asteroids, meteoroids, meteors, and meteorites? That's all for me. Take care.
Peace.